Hey, welcome back to the Outbound Kitchen podcast. I'm Eric, the Outbound chef, and this is your go-to resource to scale Outbound and make it your number one growth engine. Today, we're going to focus on my learnings and key takeaway about Outbound in 2024, and specifically, we're going to focus on call outreach. And 2024, actually, that's a year where I learned. That's a year I learned a lot about Outbound in general, call outreach, but also leadership and AI. And I know AI it's a big topic, and we're going to unpack that in another episode. I've been in sales for the past 6 years, doing call outreach, but also leading outbound teams. And this year, 2024 was a year I learned a lot because I moved to focus on my business, but also on my show now I'm also talking a lot with a top 100% team. So that's why I've learned a lot. With those episodes, my goal also is to talk about those takeaways, but on the show and the newsletter, I'm going to also unpack how you can implement that in your businesses. And another thing also is Outbound is a debt. It's just evolving. It's just getting harder, I would say, and expensive, but I don't think it's dead. So today's part 1, 6 learning on call outreach. Then part 2 will be on what the top 1% outbound team do from the leadership level, and then the AI use cases in outbound. Let's start with the first learning about call outreach, and that was one I've learned when I was writing the guide for enterprise prospecting. And this one is companies using mini websites, personalized websites. And I think it was super interesting to learn about that because if you run an account-based approach, I think that's something that can definitely help you with outbound specifically, because when you are trying to reach out to someone, a company, an account, whatever, having a personalized website for them, it can make the difference. We're going to talk about 3 things here: the industry level, the account level, and then on the person level, the prospect level. And on those examples, we're going to talk about Snowflake, how they're implementing that, and Mutiny also. So let's talk about the industry level. We can see here, and if you are just listening to the audio show, the audio version of this, you can go to Spotify or you can go to YouTube, where I'm going to add the video version. But basically, you can have like a specific website for your industry. So if you are selling for different industries, that's great. You could do that. And basically, you have like images that focus on the industry. So on the examples here, they are focusing on airlines, and they are focusing on the pain that airlines are facing and how Snowflake can help them. They also shared the results about implementing that. If they use mini website and outbound at the same time, they 4x the account to meeting rate. So I think that's an interesting metric. Then I found also another example. They do that at the account level, and now they can focus on being more specific about, for example, if they know the key initiative of the business, for example, of the account, they can now personalize that on mini website. So they can obviously use the name of the company, and also focused on the key initiative or the key challenges they might face, because if they find out, they might find that online. Then here we have another example with Comcast, where they are personalizing the website for Comcast. And also they did another example with content specifically, because obviously if you have like a big marketing team and you have a lot of content to use, Snowflake, they also build like mini websites focused for specific accounts, and where they're using, for example, pieces of marketing that are specialized for their industry. So that's another layer. I know some Mutiny, they use that, and then what I found really interesting about Mutiny, they also add companies who are similar to their prospects. So here on the screenshot, you can see on the website here, you can see, for example, if they are selling to OVIC networks, they are going to, for the social proof, for them, they are going to focus on companies with the same size. instead of, for example, if you talk to Facebook Meta, for example, you want to talk about their competitors or companies of the same size versus using accounts who they don't have the same size. So I think that's another good example from Martini here. And then that's another example from Snowflake. They also do micro websites on the prospect level. So that was the third layer. The other thing I've learned this year about cold outreach is account-based messaging. So what I mean by that is for the past 2 years, I've been learning about the account-based motion or account-based strategy. You have account-based marketing, account-based sales development. But something I'm testing with my customers, but also my various companies, is how you can use that in your messaging. So I think there is 3 ways you can use that. One that I was using at Castor Doc, I was going after technical buyer personas, and most of the time you won't find a lot of information about them online. And what I was doing is, if I could find one of the executive interview, for example, I shared already an example of how I booked a meeting with Gong. One of the exec on the engineering team was on a podcast, and I used this podcast to book a meeting with them. And it was not the same person, so I used the pains that the person was talking about on the podcast, and then I leveraged that with someone else that was working with them on another team. And so my point with that is, even though, for example, you don't find something specific about your prospect, you can still find something relevant about their business. Actually, it can be the CEO, but it can be, here in this example, I was someone on them that was working with them directly. So if they're facing this pain, this person is talking about this pain and also facing this pain, I'm sure the other person I was going to talk with, they are facing the same pain. So for me, that's one way to think about account-based messaging. And the way, and also for the other, I would say, if you are thinking about using that, I think if you use this approach also, it's you can't send that to another account. So it's really specific to them. So it's not like I can use this messaging to everyone. And so that's, I think, a good reason to use account-based messaging, because today, if you think about all the AI messaging or everyone saying the same message to everyone, here you have like a really message that it's specific to this account based on an interview of one of the at the account. Another way I'm thinking about using account-based messaging, and that's one I was using at a company I was working with in 2024. I was working with Calypso. That's an early stage business. They sell a CS tool, so it's a competitor of Gainsight, ChurnZero, Totango, stuff like that, tools like that. And a messaging I was testing with them was, for example, if they were hiring a new VP of customer success, how can I talk to the CEO about this, for example? Sorry, let me rephrase. If they just hired a VP of sales, not they are hiring a new VP of customer success, just start working at the account, how can I talk to the CEO about that? And how can I talk to the CSMs on the team? And how can I leverage that? Same here. So it's more, maybe it's not something super personalized like the relevant like the first one about the business, but we know that if a new executive is starting at the account, there is something going on inside the business. So for me, I think there is two ways of thinking about a new exec, for example. If we talk about a VP of customer success, and here with them, I found like 2 scenarios. So one is that's maybe the third or fourth vice president, VP, and maybe because it didn't work out with the previous one, or that's one reason. And then the other reason was, most of the time, was because the account is growing, and so now they need to have someone to build the customer success motion. And if I was reaching out to the VP of CS, I know the first month is most of the time is they're pretty busy because they're getting onboarded and they're learning about the product, meeting customers, stuff like that. So I know the month 1 is maybe not the best month to talk with them. Month 2 generally is better, and that's when they start revalidating the stack, but also they start to find the problems or challenges they need to solve during their onboarding. Now, if we think about talking to the CEO, it's let's take the example of hiring their first VP of CS. It's okay. The business is at this stage where they need to invest in retention and expansion revenue streams. So, because normally early stage businesses, most of the time they focus on customer acquisition. So that's why at the beginning they invest a lot in SDRs, account executive, marketing to focus on customer acquisition. But at some point when you start getting enough customers, you need to invest in retention and expansion revenue streams. So for the CEO and for the board, that's something super important. And that's something, obviously, if I want to use that in my messaging and if I'm reaching out to the CEO directly, that's what I want to focus on. And for the CSM also, it's, if we talk about reaching out to them, we can leverage that also to say, okay, so this VP just started, so it looks like you are expanding the team or you're investing more in the retention revenue stream. So I'm curious about, do you know what are the priorities of this person, for example, or are they reevaluating the CS stack? That's an example. And then another one, I think this one is pretty common. It's the bottom-up approach that a lot of people talk about on LinkedIn. And here what you do is you talk to the end users first. What you want to understand is, do they face the problems your products solve, for example? What tools do they use? So then when you know that, you can go to their manager, talk with them about, hey, what are you currently focusing on today to fix this issue? And then when you talk to their manager, you can leverage that to talk to the director or VP, saying, hey, I was talking with so-and-so on your team. They mentioned that they're facing this problem and they tried this and it didn't work. Did you think about that, for example, or what's the impact on the global org, for example? And I think that's another great way to think about account-based messaging. Okay, so another learning, something else I've learned this year was top team use cold calling as the number one channel for Outbound. So I wrote about this. I wrote like a playbook for cold calling in 2025. But in there, I was talking about that, for example, for Rippling, obviously they have like 300 plus SDRs. Outbound is their number one growth engine. But for the SDR team specifically, 50% of the demos are coming from cold calls, which is 650 a month. That's 32 meetings booked every single day over the phone. And if we take the ACV that I take on review, which is 32K, that's 21 million in pipeline every month. And if we think about just 10% win rate, that's 2 million in ARR close monthly just from cold calls. And then from more for the rep level, also I was talking with Will Falkenberg, so he was already on the show, but what he told me is before he focused on multi-channel and he was hitting 130% to 150% of quota. Then when he shifted to 80% of his focus on calls, he started to get 300 to 500% fully ramped. So I think that's another good number to figure out. And then I have two other examples. So top teams, the way they get results. But today we have like also Nukes. No, in 2024 Nukes, they were booking 75% of the meeting from cold calls. And then also owners that already had like Kyle Norton on the show talking about that their BDR are producing 72K ARR per month per rep, and 95% of meetings are coming from cold calls. And one of the AE mentioned to me that they are booking 30 plus meetings a day. Another learning, and that was new for me because I've heard about that specifically, caller ID, but I had on the show the CEO of Triple Zach Rigo, and he was talking about using branded caller ID. So caller ID, if you're not familiar with that, is basically when you're calling someone, you have your name on the phone of your prospect, but your name. So for me, if I'm calling someone that doesn't have my phone number registered on their phone, they will see Elric Leblanc on their phone. But Zach mentioned that they don't do that. They use triple way instead of the name of the rep. And I asked him why, and he was explaining that their reps, they are making, I don't remember exactly the number of call calls they're making per month, but they are making a lot. And instead of seeing the name that maybe their prospect don't know, but triple way, they may be familiar more. They may be more familiar with triple way than the rep's name. And it gives them free advertising on their phone. And even the prospects don't answer, they still see the name. And if they obviously, for example, they leave a voicemail, they will see triple way on top of that because the name of triple will show on their phone. And I think that was super interesting because obviously we know outbound is hard, but here you build familiarity with the brand on top of making cold calls. And something else that Zach mentioned to me was that they don't spam their prospects. So obviously it creates more familiarity to the brand of triple. So I think it was super interesting also, this learning. Okay, the next one is targeting. Early adopters versus everyone else. So what I mean by that is most of the time I'm seeing a lot of companies and early stage mainly confusing their ICP and the total addressable market. They're talking to everyone, and for reps, that's a waste of time. For SDRs, they're booking meetings with the wrong accounts, and sometimes they're not going to answer. Same for AEs, if they're talking to one of those accounts, that's maybe a waste of time. So if you think about targeting on your market, and if we think about your total addressable market, on your total addressable market, you have early adopters and those who are going to buy, but maybe in 5-10 years, for example, when after that everyone already bought the type of products you are selling, that's the way they are going to do it. So I'm going to give you 2 examples, and what I mean by that is if I'm talking about when I was working at Chipapper, for example, we were selling to SaaS companies. Obviously, SaaS companies are maybe, it's an industry that's, you have a lot of early adopters, but even though in this industry, you have a lot of early adopters, and then you have a lot of companies that don't buy the new products right away. So if we think about Chipapper today, and I was an SDR today, prospecting accounts for Chipapper, I would check those companies that are already investing in new tools like Hockey Stack, for example. That's a tool for marketing teams that Chipapper, they sell a lot to marketing leaders, but also upseers. But Hockey Stack is like one of the new tools. Another one is B2B. So I will check those accounts that are using B2B. And then also Clay, because yes, I said Chipapper, they sell to marketing leaders, but they also sell to the full go-to-market team. And if you don't know Clay, they are focused more on the go-to-market team. So Outbound, mainly, they're mainly focused on for outbound teams, but also marketing teams use Clay. So I will focus a second that already pay for those tools, because I want to have like companies that they are maybe more open to try new tools versus those accounts that maybe they will wait 5 years just to consider buying a new tool. So that's one example for Chipapper. And then I can give you another example for more like a tech product. So I used to work for a company selling a data catalog. So we were selling to tech leaders, data leaders. And here, if we think about that, same here on the market, and actually I was going to show you. If we think about this industry, most of the time we are selling to companies that already bought like a data warehouse. So Snowflake, BigQuery, mainly. If they just moved to the cloud, they were not the best fit for us because they were not facing the problems we are facing. So the problems we are facing, they were really focused for those modern data teams that they had so many data assets, and the tool we were selling basically we were solving those problems. But the way we started to adapt the targeting for this company was we started to focus on companies that were buying other type of tools, like I was talking about Chili Pepper, the new tools that their leaders were buying. So for this company, I was DBT or Sigma Computing, for example. They were the newest tools on the market for data teams, and we started to focus on that. And the conversation we have with those companies were obviously better because we knew that they were early adopters of new technologies on this market. So if you think about using that, you should think about the same on your market. Are you selling a tool like that? For example, if you think about go-to-market, the tool that everyone is using is CRM. So do they use Salesforce, HubSpot, for example? So here we are on markets that almost, I don't know what's the percentage of the market, but maybe 90-95% of companies B2B with B2B sales teams, they use a CRM. So most of them, they're already using something. But if you are selling a tool that is on top of the CRM, so what tools do they use? Are they early adopters versus are they going to wait to buy other tools? Okay, the next one is about messaging. And this one, I think it's interesting because if you are selling a product with a lot of competitors, you don't want to talk to your prospect and talk about the problems that maybe your problem is solving that your competitor can also solve. So you want to show to your prospect that you know that they might be using a competitor, and you want to acknowledge that since the beginning. That's one option. But then also maybe you are selling a product that you don't have competitor yet, and that can be the case. When I joined Chili Pepper, actually, that was the case. One of the product, the top product we were selling, we didn't have competitors. We have alternatives, but they were not doing the same thing. So you don't want to talk about competitors here because you just want to talk about the problems that they are facing or maybe facing that your product can solve. And you don't want to talk about competitors because no one is doing it. So here, what you need to think about, are you on a market where you need to focus on the problems that you can solve? And if you have competitors, is talking straight up about competitors. So, and that's what I was doing. And if we talk about the example earlier about Calypso, when I was working with them about the CS tool, we had a lot of competitors. We had like 10 competitors. So if I'm talking to VP of CS, I'm not going to talk about the problem they are facing that a CS tool can help solve, because maybe they're already aware of that and they may be already having something in place. So when I was talking to VP of CS, I was, hey, I know I'm talking to a lot of VP of CS, and you might have some experience with Totango, ChurnZero, or Gainsight, and what's your experience with those tools? And what I want to understand is, one is, are they happy with those tools? And if not, obviously, that's still an opportunity for you to talk about how you are different than them. And then also, if you're on the market with a lot of competitors, is what's the renewal date? Because if they just sign with them, well, even though you have a meeting with them, yeah, you can show your product, and even your product is better, well, that's a waste of time for them and for you or UAE, because they're not going to move to you for the next 12 months. Something else I was thinking about also, it's most of the time, I think you have two ways of thinking about competitors. One is For example, if you are selling a CRM, Salesforce versus HubSpot, obviously if they are using Salesforce and you are selling HubSpot, you need to wait the end of the contract for them to consider moving to your CRM. But sometimes you are also an alternative to the current solution, and are they thinking about investing more, for example, to add on top of it? And here we can figure out B2B contact database. If I'm saying ZoomInfo versus Cognizant, for example, they can use both. It's not, yes, they're competitors, but they can still use both, because if they have a sales team in the US, ZoomInfo may be better than Cognizant. If they have a sales team in Europe, Cognizant might be better than ZoomInfo. And so that's where I think some products you can still, even though they use a competitor, they can still buy your solution, for example, because here one tool is better for one situation and the other one is better for the other situation. So the takeaway for you on this one is, if for all your outbound messaging, whether it's on the phone or via email, it's if you know that they might be using a competitor and you can't find the information online, you want to be upfront with that and not like talking about the problems that maybe they already maybe they don't have those problems because they already have your competitor in place. And if you are not on the market, that you don't have competitors, that's where you should be focused on more on the pain of the pain that your product can solve. So that's it for today. On the next episode, we're going to talk about how top 100% outbound teams are doing to be efficient and scale outbound. If you found this episode useful and want to build a strong outbound culture at your company, you might enjoy my newsletter, Outbound Kitchen. You get a free version every Sunday, and there is also a paid version where you receive more in-depth content. I sent 7 already. The last one was 9 call messages. The last one was 9 call message frameworks, deconstructed why they work and how you can use them. Previous one was the guide to building an enterprise prospecting system. The previous one was guide crafting the ideal outbound SDR compensation plan that motivates SDRs and drive business results. Next one, I will tell you that's this week, why hiring the secret sauce to scaling outbound and how to hire the top SDRs. If you are interested, subscribe using the link in the description.